Alright, Spike Lee's highest to lowest. Let's talk about it, shall we? I apologize for skipping the introduction, but I think this is one movie where the introduction skipping kinda sort of feels necessary because this is one movie, I call it fascinatingly exasperating. Or is it exasperatingly fascinating? I genuinely have no idea how to categorize this movie. Listen, when Spike Lee was first announced as somebody who is going to remake Akira Kurosawa's High and Low, I thought, like a lot of other cinephiles, that oh boy, this is not going to be a good decision at all. Primarily because number one, you are remaking Kurosawa, okay, and I'm sorry if I sound like a snob, but remaking Kurosawa comes with its own set of baggages. This is not Seven Samurai. And Rashomon has been remade so much it has become a style or it has become a story thread more like anything else. But High and Low is it's based on a novel by Ed McBain, which is part of the 87 Precinct series of novels, right? But what Kurosawa does is Kurosawa takes that novel as the framework and he uses it to comment on capitalism. If the first half of the movie is about the quote unquote high and low strata of society and what happens when a capitalist is forced to make a choice, the second half becomes an entirely different procedural. And how he juggles that, how he balances that while not losing sight of the societal commentary he's trying to make within post war Japan in the 1960s is pretty impeccable. As was how he's trying to, you know, trying to actually from a technical standpoint trying to literally not revolutionize but reteach basics of filmmaking, like just just the blocking in that movie, just the framing in that movie, just how he's shooting parts and scenes of that movie, the exchange of the ransom money from the train sequence is absolutely drop dead fascinating, which brings me to Spike Lee. Highest to lowest. I think if we are going to look at an entry point into highest to lowest, we need to look into the music album. Howard Rawson's score, Fergus McCready's piano work. It's essential to understand this because the music itself kind of sort of tells what the movie is, which is almost like a sort of an old artist's return return to actual fame or an old artist return to prevalence, which is why he's shoving in different styles and formats and trying to ensure that something or the other is going to hit with his existing fan base. It's almost like an experimental jazz score, which is a problem sometimes. I think what makes Highest to Lowest work far better is it's not a faithful remake. It is sort of like a milieu transplantation because it is essentially taking you back to America again. It's taking the high and low conceit from Akira Kurosawa and then supplanting it back to Ed McBain's world of the gritty procedural neorealism of New York. But then Spike takes that to a different form because he is now trying to comment on the music industry. We follow Denzel Washington. We follow Denzel Washington as a rapper, as a mogul, as a music mogul. If I'm not mistaken, and even if I'm not mistaken, I mean this is an easy guess to make. He might be based off Dr. Dre. This is an easy guess to make. I mean, come on. But again, and what the story ultimately does is he transplants the the shoe capitalist, the massive industrialist who operates a shoe store of Toshiro Mifune's character, to a music mogul. Immediately he focuses that transplantation immediately changes stuff, right? You have commentary on older people who know how the music industry works but who are bemoaning on the fact that the music industry is still changing. Attention is now becoming the currency more than the actual talent. Like these are conversations, and in a different movie or in a movie that is dealing with music as a central focus, these conversations would be interesting to have, provided that Spike Lee has something new to say. I doubt Spike Lee has something new to say about the music that we don't already know in this movie per se. This is not Ryan Coogler's Sinners, where he uses the music as a commentary on black history itself. This is this is Spike Lee using the mystery to using the music to comment on black culture and assimilation in the present. And what he is actually saying kind of sort of becomes like an old man sort of ranting at the clouds. It sounds like I'm saying that is a bad thing. It isn't. Listen, Spike Lee, if anything, is not very subtle. Spike Lee has always been a blunt filmmaker. His bluntness, the intensity of his bluntness, what makes his movies great. Here, though, the bluntness coupled with the sincerity sometimes makes scenes within the movie very corny. That first half, how the music starts, how the movie starts itself with, an overview of New York City with Howard Johnson score, which Howard Johnson score almost makes the movie feel like a city symphony, except then the music becomes schmaltzy. And that schmaltzy music drives me up a wall because I have no idea what the score was about in that first half. Seriously, it felt so much like a rags to riches sort of like a story of a It almost felt like a 1950s Hollywood movie. Not in a good way, actually. It was feeling like a journey of self-discovery for this man who isn't exactly the most likable. He's likable because he's Denzel Washington, because he's literally chewing the scenery everywhere he goes. But the score is such a mismatch in that first half. But when the movie finally shifts into gear by putting the high and low story, which ultimately follows that the protagonist's son is kidnapped. But then there is a mix up, and we learn that that one of his servants' son is actually kidnapped in by mistake. And now the protagonist has a choice whether to pay for the ransom, whether to pay the ransom, or to actually utilize that money, for his own ends. In the case of the original, to do a leveraged buyout. In this case, to buy a controlling interest into his own music company. Again, really good stuff in transplanting the milieu, and how that leads into that midsection. That is peak Spike Lee. It's also extremely exasperating because at times Spike Lee is using digital filmmaking, right? There are sequences where Dean Winters' detective is driving the car, and you can clearly see that the background is CGI. But then when Denzel Washington's character, along with the two police detectives, are entering the subway, you can see that the camera is changing from digital to film. It's the most jazz score sort of a movie editing I have seen. And that middle section, that ransom exchange sequence in this movie is exhilarating, primarily because here also he utilizes music. In this case, a live performance. By Palminteri and the Salsa Orchestra. Again, extraordinary sequence. How the money is actually retrieved by the kidnappers, and then they use a switcheroo. Really, really great stuff. But it's in the second half where Spike Lee diverges from high and low, from Kurosawa. In that, and I'm not trying to spoil, he makes it more personal. He doesn't make it procedural. He makes it more personal. It's a divisive move, to be sure. It's especially more divisive if you exactly see the denouement of the movie, the climax of it, where there is a sequence where there is a conversation between Denzel Washington's music mogul and A$AP Rocky's young talent. A$AP Rocky is the young talent who he actually talks about. There are two conversation scenes between those two of them, which is supposed to be the showcases, right? And to an extent, because the speech itself and how Denzel and Rocky deliver it, they feel almost like Shakespearean in a way. The problem is they are also so overtly sincere, and they are also so overtly representing and pointing out the themes that they almost feel like they're hitting you over the head with it. I love the fact that Washington uses Nazis represent lines from Nazis represent to actually hammer home a point. Or there is literally a rap battle. There is literally a quote unquote rap battle as a conversation piece between these two actors. But again, it feels very strange. It feels like it's in a tug of war between what it wants to be and what it should be. It wants to be a story about a character arc of realization, a realization of a music mogul or a capitalist to actually go back to his roots and figure out what he actually was. But it also wants to be a procedural. It also wants to be high and low. And it's in that weird push and pull where this movie sometimes stumbles. I'm not going to use words like cringe or utter misfire because it isn't. There are so many fascinating filmmaking choices. They are also very exasperating choices, especially in terms of score. And even in the filmmaking, in the first half, some of the editing feels so like off. Like again, this movie is so much baked into its own music. In the first half, there are some sequences where scenes, while in the edit, are getting repeated. It's almost like the scene is moving forward while the actions are lagging behind. It's very strange at times. It's almost like again, no music album is perfect, right? Very few music albums are perfect. Like all the songs are supposed to be bangers. I think highest to lowest should also be looked at like that. Like it's another Spike Lee joint where sections of it are absolute masterclasses, while there are other sections which feels almost like an old school worldview trying to hammer through the new worldviews. Some of the hammerings work, some of the hammerings don't. But this is a really interesting movie. It doesn't work, always doesn't work. But when it works, it really works. And I think, look, Denzel Washington is great. I don't know what I can say about Denzel Washington that hasn't already been said. Is he at times chewing the scenery like he does in Gladiator 2, like he does in Training Day? Yes. But is he also at times really good, really fluent in all of the prowesses of acting? Yes. Is Jeffrey Wright good within his conversation, while in both of their conversations, setting up their friendship far better than maybe exposition does? Yes. These are really good actors. I really don't know what to tell you. It's almost like, there are cynics who will say that Washington is almost sleepwalking, but I don't think Washington is sleepwalking. I think this is a role so in tune with both the actor as well as the city that he just fits in like a glove in some of those sequences. And really fascinating movie. Really, at times good. It's not a great movie by any stretch of the imagination. This is not the greatest Spike Lee movie. That's Malcolm X. But this is not even as good as The Five Bloods, or not even as great as Black Klansman. But it's still a Spike Lee joint, and divisive and interesting Spike Lee joint is already far more interesting than most movies out there. That's my review, I guess. I spoke so quickly. I don't know whether any of it will be actually coherent. I sincerely hope it is. I hope you guys like this review. Again, I forgot to make my introduction. I am Omotto Acharya. If you have discovered my YouTube channel right now, I am releasing a video a week late. Yeah, this is not the consistency you expect from me, and I'm really sorry about that. I'll try to be better. That's all I can promise you guys. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much. Please do the needful. Please like, please share, please subscribe. Thank you. Really, thank you. Thank you for all the support.